Hey everybody, welcome. We're going to get started. If you would take your seats. Awesome. So before the actual event you came here to hear about and learn more about and watch happen, I'm going to do a brief introduction. My name is Steve Lazinski. Spanky also works, and I am part of the Aerospace Village. So we are so happy, proud, you name it, the fact that we have this village, you all are here, you all are also here because you want to see HAS4. It's our 5th year, but we've been partnered with them from the very first DEF CON in 2019 where we came together as the Aviation Village. The idea grew, and now with the 4th year, and being able to team up with them, and again, having you all come in and see what's happening. So please take time. Obviously, take a look at HAS4, come by the village. You got questions, the blue shirts can help you out. But man, really glad to see this happening and excited for you all and all the hard work. So I will pass it off to a fellow Steve, and you're in good hands.
What's up, everybody? How are we doing today? Awesome. So, Steve, thank you for that. Appreciate it. We certainly appreciate our partnership here with the Aerospace Village. Already, since our 9 o'clock start time, we've had 2 scores on the board in HAS4. Jordan Wines, our CTF expert, is going to talk to you more about it in a few minutes, but we were a little bit on pins and needles with a real satellite in the air because this is the first ever CTF in outer space. But we've made it through that uncertainty, and hopefully we keep progressing positively throughout the next 2 days. So, again, I'm Steve from the Air Force, and a lot of people have asked me, like, why is the Department of the Air Force, also, which includes the US Space Force, doing something like hacking a satellite? And I mean, it seems like a simple answer to me because we've been on this journey for 4 years, but at the end of the day, we wanted to raise the public's awareness, the security researchers' awareness, and the space experts' awareness to the fact that we care about the security of our space systems. Certainly we do as a government, just like every other government, but also for our everyday life. I mean, what we're doing here today, how a lot of us got here today, all integral to space, working 100% and flawlessly. And it's super hard. This is why our slogan this year is "Practice is over." We have "Space is hard" labeled all over our videos, and the reason for that is because it truly is hard. And a lot of things go wrong, and we're not impacted. But if they go really wrong because of not enough foresight or not enough forethought into the designs of these systems, we all sort of are going to be impacted in a negative manner. So that's what we really wanted to do, is raise awareness with respect to that. But we also knew that there was some fun to be had. Everyone was asking, like, when's the Air Force going to do something that's fun instead of just being boring? So we just said, all right, well, can we do something in outer space? Super hard at first, because no one wanted to let us use their satellites, as you probably can imagine. So what we did is we called it the design, build, break sort of methodology of how we eventually developed our Moonlighter satellighter and launched it, which we'll have one of our Space Force representatives come up and discuss a little bit of the intricacies about it. We have a real-life replica of it, so the thing flying in outer space right now is that. It's just a replica. And we're also going to talk about some game explainers, as well as sort of recap some of our quals and how that went down, and then what you can see here today. So there's the history wall over here. We have, like, we call it a museum. We have posters. So please come check it out. I hope that we've done our job, which is raising the public's awareness of how space systems need to be resilient for the globe to rise, just like the old saying is, a rising tide raises all boats. So we want to do that. We want to just come up together because we all need space. So with that said, I'm going to show you a history video, and then some of our other team members are going to come up. Like I said, Jordan, we have our whole cast of characters that are going to come up and give you some details, along with what you can see around the corner here for the rest of the day and tomorrow. And also, noon on Sunday, the schedule is all out on the Aerospace Village website, as well as hackasat.com. We're going to announce the winners. So there's some intricacies which Jordan's going to get into of why we can't score everything right away. So Sunday we're going to unveil everything right here. So it's going to be pretty exciting. And we might have a special guest potentially do the announcements. So with that, I'm going to hit the video, and then Rachel's going to come up.
The problem is really quite simple. find the best path to get from point A to point B.
The United States Air Force and Space Force had an idea to host a space-based CTF to advance space cybersecurity. While many were sure it couldn't or shouldn't be done, in 2020 they launched HACASAT, an educational effort and capture the flag style hacking competition. HACASAT is designed to inspire the global security researcher community to develop the interest and skills necessary to reduce vulnerabilities and build more secure space systems. Education has been central, from testing the public with an open hacking challenge, to a tough qualification round introducing space-relevant topics and skills, to a set of hands-on workshops in the virtual aerospace village at DEF CON Safe Mode, to a whole library of resources on space and hacking. We developed flat-sat hardware and challenges to give security researchers access and experience to space technologies they wouldn't have otherwise. It all led to a fierce final CTF competition for the top 8 teams from Quals, and the source code for all Quals and final challenges are available on GitHub for the community to keep learning. As HACASAT 1 ended, planning started for HACASAT 2. We enhanced the HACASAT FlatSat and assembled a new digital twin to support even more realistic space challenges. The qualification round took place in June 2021, with the top 8 teams making it to the final event. HACASAT brought a full slate of talks and workshops about space security to DEF CON 29, and the virtual final CTF took place in December 2021. Challenges were still based on the FlatSat, but now teams could test their commands within the digital twin simulation. And again, the source code from Quals and Finals challenges are available on GitHub through our Players Corner page. As HACASAT 2 ended, planning started for HACASAT 3, and development was already well underway for Moonlighter, a 3U CubeSat dedicated to furthering space cybersecurity. Its first mission would be to host HACASAT 4. We developed the digital twin-based final event to mirror the actual Moonlighter satellite. And with help from astrophysicist Dr. Hakeem Oluseyi, we built an online educational experience for the public to plan, build, and test their very own 3U CubeSat, just like Moonlighter. HACASAT 3 Quals took place virtually in May 2022. In August, the HACASAT team brought space-relevant talks to Aerospace Village at DEF CON 30. The finals took place in October of 2022, with 8 teams working through 12 challenges over 23 hours in this attack-defend-style CTF. And again, source code from Quals and final challenges are available on GitHub. As Moonlighter moved from design to the build stage, the team went deep into HACASAT 4 planning. A space-focused CTF is hard to build and play. An on-orbit CTF is even harder, and it's never been done before. Our qualification round took place April 2023. Moonlighter launched on June 5th.
1, ignition.
And deployed from the International Space Station on July 6th, and is now in low Earth orbit. This is its first mission. Practice is over. The HACASAT 4 final event has begun.
A huge congratulations to the Moonlighter team. Stay in touch and best of luck with operations.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Mann from the Air Force Research Lab. So just a little bit more background as far as how we got where we are today to have a live event with you all. So a qualification was held over April Fool's weekend. That was not intentional, but it was April Fool's weekend. Thank you to anybody that's in here that did compete in that. We, of course, cannot have a great final event with all the participants that we have here today without a really successful qualification event. And so this year, over the 2-day, 30-hour period, we did a Jeopardy-style competition. We did have over 700 teams. Over 58 countries were represented across those teams. We did have 28 challenges with 1 left unsolved, which I think is kudos to our challenge development team. We keep things interesting and make it fun but challenging. So the top 8 teams this year were able to get $10,000 in cash prizes. You will notice a change from this year to last year is that we only brought 5 teams to finals today. Of course, course, why did we have to make that change after doing it that way for 3 years? It is, of course, because of the satellite that's in orbit. To keep this game interesting, to keep it fun, challenging, but still fair, we felt that bringing 5 teams to finals was the best way to encourage the use of the satellite without any unfairness, any issues with the satellite, and teams not being able to use it. 5 was kind of our prime number versus the 8 that we've done in years past. So that was intentional. It did take a lot of thinking on our part. The decision, of course, was not made quickly, but I think we're happy with the way that we are going forward, and so far, so good. Kevin.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Captain Kevin Bernert from the U.S. Space Force, one of the Space System Command sponsors for this program. Like Steve had mentioned, when this program was originally starting out, we wanted to see if we can get someone to let us use their satellite and let y'all hack it. We were met with a resounding no. So we decided to start building up our very own satellite, never say never. So it took us a little under 2 years from start to finish, which is really fast for satellite development. But earlier this year, in April, we delivered the Moonlighter space vehicle after it was all finished up to the integrator. So space integrators are the ones in charge of making sure that your vehicle or your space vehicle will fit onto the launch vehicle itself. And so in June of this year, it was attached to the SpaceX 28 rocket, which was a commercial resupply mission to the ISS. So it was taking food, water, resources, science missions, upgrades to the ISS, and it didn't really take long to get there, but it hung out on the ISS for about a month before an astronaut went and loaded it onto the airlock system, and then a robotic arm went and grabbed the satellite and essentially just pointed it out and shot it off into orbit, and we have some cool footage of that as well. So like I said, Moonlighter, this is a full-scale model of it, a 1-for-1 model. So it's pretty small. It's what's called a 3U CubeSat, which is how they measure smaller satellites. So it's about 30 centimeters by 10 by 10. But as our computers and everything gets, smaller but still more powerful, this does as well. So it has all the stuff that's on a satellite, well, because it is a satellite, and it has its solar panels right now unfolded. But I think we have some cool footage to show you as well. These are some different angles. That middle one is just a picture of the solar panels in a stowed position. So once you get it released from the ISS, after a while you're able to get those opened up just to make sure your battery life lasts a little bit longer. And also we have amazing displays over in the next room as well in our contest area, and a lot more people to answer more in-depth questions. So again, for Liftoff, we launched June 5th aboard the SpaceX commercial resupply mission bound for the ISS. Thank you, NASA.
15 seconds.
So there it is in Florida at the Kennedy
10,
Space Center.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
We
2,
have liftoff.
1. Ignition, engine full power, and liftoff of CRS-28. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
Of solar arrays to boost power and resources.
And this is the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, the first of which is main engine cutoff, or MECO, and this is when all 9
MECO.
About 2 minutes, 40 seconds after you have separation. And then it goes and docks onto the International Space Station. So space is hard, as Steve Colenso had mentioned. One of the main reasons is coordinating, working with your launch provider and getting it in space. I'm sure you've all heard of space launches getting scrubbed due to weather or technical difficulties. Well, the same thing happened to us. We had a lot of our team there at the beginning waiting for a launch, only for it to be aborted very shortly after. And so we came back the next day, but some people had to go home, and it got scrubbed again, and we waited the next day, but then we had success. So we were able to have some boots on the ground and get some good footage of that as well. But just the coordination with space vehicles, although space is much more proliferated than it was even a year ago, you still obviously run into those issues because the price is too high for you to take any really risks that are not negotiable by waiting just one other day. but we also have some cool footage of when the Moonlighter vehicle was deployed from the International Space Station. Because a lot of the times your rocket will take you directly into your orbit, but like I said, this is a unique opportunity to get Moonlighter into the orbit that we needed it to be. So again, it was about a month later that we deployed from the ISS. Follow along closely because it's about to shoot.
3, 2, 1, mark.
There it goes. And it tracks it a little bit. You'll be able to see it, I think, in the top left corner. Yep, there it is. But there's real footage. The Earth is round. There it is, the curvature. There's the ISS. So it took a selfie, so you can tell that it also came off the ISS. It also shows you how fast Moonlighter really is going around Earth. So things in Leo at that specific orbit rotate around the entire Earth in only an hour and a half. So it's moving at 17,000 plus or minus 100 miles per hour, about 5 miles per second. And later on, we'll get into more details about why that makes it challenging, but also more fun for our ground stations to contact Moonlighter.
Félicitations à l'équipe de Moonlighter. Restez en contact et bonne chance pour les opérations.
But it's real. We're up there now, on orbit, right as we speak. It's still going over. Moonlighter has a shelf life of about 1.5 years before gravity eventually pulls it down and it fizzles off into a shooting star. So you're probably wondering, though, how we're able to even do a CTF, not just on the ground, but on space, on a space vehicle that's going so fast. And so here's a video that'll help shed some light on that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, liftoff, and the clock has started.
Challenges of our age, here on Earth and beyond the Earth, in space.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jordan Wines, or Cyphertex, and I'm the sort of CTF sideline reporter for HAS4. By day, I work on a reverse engineering tool called Binary Ninja, and then at night, I play capture the flags or like commentate them, talk about them, and I've been lucky to be part of HAS4 now for about 4 years. I kind of want to talk a little bit. First, how many people here know what a capture the flag is? Like, I assume most people do. You're here in the room, but just, you know, the idea is that you're hacking systems in a legal manner, and the flags are usually just kind of code or proof or triggers or something that you've shown you violated some security kind of principle. So in the capture the flag community, we have a couple of different styles of events. We have ones that are called attack defense, which is what's happening over at DEF CON CTF right now, just over the way, where there are 12 teams there attacking each other while they're defending against their same system. And we've done that. For example, last year at HACASAT, there have been teams each with their own infrastructure that everyone else was attacking and defending at the same time. We tried to get the Space Force and Air Force to let us launch 5 satellites, and unfortunately there wasn't budget apparently for that. So we've got one flat sat that's up in space with Moonlighter right now. And so this year, in the 4th year, the final event is not going to be this attack defense kind of competition. It has more of what we call either a Jeopardy style or a red team CTF, where it's pure attack. So each team is just trying to attack and solve and score, and they're working their way through the different challenges to get their points. As mentioned in the Game Explainer, there's no SLA. So obviously in a commercial environment, SLA is service level agreement. It's just, did you keep your servers up? Because it's pretty boring when you play a CTF and you just turn the server off. You're secure, ta-da, and so most CTFs will require you to maintain the services that you're running for other people to attack. But again, since we're not doing attack defense, that's less of a concern this year. In years past, for example, teams had to worry about battery life and actually maintain their satellite themselves. We didn't want to let them mess that up this year on a real satellite, right? So there's one satellite, it's being maintained, the operations, the battery level, all that's being maintained by the satellite operations teams, and so they're kind of managing that part of it. But the cool part is this is the first capture the flag in space. There is code that is running on that satellite from our teams that's going to be solving these challenges. So let's talk a little bit about what the game infrastructure kind of looks like. We've got this kind of overall picture here of, it's a little bit small there. On the bottom left, though, you can see there's our 5 teams that are starting here on the ground floor in Vegas. It's also really nice, by the way. We've been playing this now this is the 4th year we've had this event. This is the first time we could see the teams face to face. So that's actually really cool. We're really excited to finally be able to meet people. It was the beginning of the pandemic when it first hit, and we switched from planning to come to DEF CON, planning to do this event in person, to having to do it all virtually. So it's great to kind of finally be here. So we've got those 5 teams, and again, as Rachel mentioned, you can't have like 8 teams competing for a very small number of kind of like satellite communication windows. So we've pared down the final set of teams to these teams. It also meant that if they qualified for DEF CON CTF, they didn't have to decide if they were going to split their team or if they were going to do both at the same time, if there were fewer teams in the finals. They're talking to this tasking API. This tasking interface API is just an HTTP interface that they can now submit their code to, right? So every operation that they send, they package up and they send to this API, and that can include commands, it can include requests for telemetry, include scripting interface. There's all these like operations that they can do using that API. That goes into a validation step. So the game infrastructure people do some amount of validation to me, like make sure this stuff is well formed. It's not going to cause anything super crazy to happen. Like there is hacking and that's intentional, but there's also things that could maybe be, a bad idea to do. And so there's some like, does it pass sort of like, is it well-formed data? Is it going to actually do something like construct, or is it actually going to do the task that they're trying to do? Well, we don't tell them for sure if they're going to solve it or not, but we at least can validate the structure of the requests. That goes to the command scheduler. And between the command scheduler there then and the ground network, that's actually, it goes off to a commercial satellite operations company that has ground stations throughout the world. And so there's 4 different ground stations in use. You'll see that this ground network kind of has that like a little L-shaped bend because there's these 2 phases that the ground station is going to be activated in, right? When on the uplink request, when the requests get uploaded to the server, or to the server. See, I'm so used to playing regular CTF, to the satellite, right? When the code gets uploaded to it, that's going to happen during that uplink. And then it's going to have between the next windows of communication, the code's going to be running, right? So the payloads are all going to be running on the satellites as the teams each try to solve their challenges. You can see then on the bottom right there, Moonlighter itself has a lot of components that are typical of a satellite, right? It's got an imager, it's got GPS, it's got ADCS, it's attitude control, I always forget it, attitude determination control system. See, this is why we have the space people around. I'm just the CTF guy. And that's essentially the orienting, right? It's the ability to like move and locate where are you and position. Well, sorry, move is a thing I have to be careful of saying, right? Because there is no propulsion on this. These little flat sats are just floating around. They have the solar panels for like maintaining their onboard systems, and they have some gyroscopic orientation. So they have these, like I guess they're similar to flywheels, at least as my understanding. They can kind of like use to like orient and move it in 3D space, so they can change the axes. But they're just pointing, right? Which makes sense if you've got that imager and you want to be able to take a picture of something. Well, you have to aim at what you're pointing at. And so that's how they do that with that ADCS system. So these are again all kind of typical components of many satellites, commercial and otherwise. And so it executes the commands. It's going to run through each team's requests, and then that data is going to come back down through the ground station network. And you notice that we showed that as a different satellite dish because these are different windows, right? You don't like, you upload your request, and then you have to wait till the next window before you get the results as they come back down. And that telemetry data, the results that come back, if there's code that they ran, and the teams are going to get all that information, and the data comes back over there. There are 10, so there are 9 challenges, 2 of which happened on the ground station, and 7 of which happen in space, right? So the majority of the game is actually happening on code that runs on Moonlighter. So they've got to like run their payloads. They've got to get that up in space. This is what this is actually going to look like. These communication windows that teams are actually sending their request to throughout these 2 weekends. And this is really important to point out that we didn't even know, as the sort of organizers in putting this on, exactly what these communication windows were going to look like until just about the week before the event, right? So it's really the last minute because you're waiting for the again, I don't understand the space physics or how it exactly works, but you actually don't necessarily know exactly where your orbit's going to be at exactly what time at a further enough out period, and so that we had to kind of figure out where we could talk to it even, and that impacted like how you design challenges. Do you have, for example, one challenge that gates another challenge or not is something you would normally design and do a capture the flag, but we had to build that into it. Again, you'll notice there's very few contact windows on the next day, for example. So tomorrow, there's just very few opportunities to talk to the FlatSat. And so they've got a lot of opportunities today. They've got overnight, and then we've got tomorrow. Each one of these windows, if you look, this sort of like door frame or window is the window, right? The little white arch. And that's just showing, that's the period of time where we're able to uplink and downlink data from the satellite. A little triangle is indicating that the teams have to have all of their requests queued in to be validated to go to the command queue before that window itself, right? So there's like a hard cutoff. The teams have to have everything in. Then we have the communication window. Then it goes off and executes the payloads, and we get the results back in the next window, if all goes to plan. There's a lot of things that can happen. Actually, overnight last night when the game competition team was running tests, they actually had some windows that were like corrupted because of RF interference. Like it just happens that like you don't get a good command window because of who knows what the interrupted the communication link. And so this is, again, when we talk about space is hard, there's just all these like, real world concerns that can come in and impact how the communications happen and how much availability you have. So this is really, you know, it's a lot to kind of fit into this like weekend competition capture the flag style event. You'll see that the red line there on the bottom that shows up tomorrow and kind of overnight, that's actually where they're going to be doing the pointing and imaging missions, right? So because the FlatSat isn't always sort of engaged in terms of moving, actually the default state is kind of a tumble. Like it's only when you need to activate it and use it and point it and use the orientation mechanisms that it's kind of under control. And so there's this window that occurs kind of overnight where those imaging tasks, because again, there's some of these challenges that they're going to have to do involve pointing the FlatSat and taking pictures of particular locations. There's even a fun one where they're required to take a picture at a location that's actually off limits, which I think is super cool. Off limits being just arbitrary locations. They're not actually, I mean, we'll see if they try to take pictures of some secret things, but the resolution of the camera is not particularly good, so I don't think we have to worry too much about that. So again, the game ends from the player's perspective in terms of the commands they're sending tomorrow at about 6 p.m., right? And there's that last window. But then there are several more there, and even overnight, where we're waiting for more data to come back. It's possible, again, that some of the windows we don't get the full downloads, or that maybe there's a lot of data backed up and we're waiting for it to all download. And so it's going to take a little bit, and this is why we say come back on Sunday, and we'll get the full kind of update of what's happened as we've been able to kind of tally up and see how teams did. And speaking of the teams, that's right, I forgot. This is the good one. So this is the actual breakdown where you can see each team has a sort of like time slice, right, of the window where their code is going to be run, and there's several different actions they can do. There's a scripting, there's a downlinking, and then there's a imaging kind of like section, like actions that they could take. And the scripting, there's several different things they can do with that. It's like an actual like scripting language, and it's actually a Lua interface. It's running on the flat site, and so they're uploading this code that's actually going to be executed there. And you'll see each team changes though, right? So the colors of the team is unique to each of our 5 finalist teams, but it's different per pass, right? We randomize it up so that it's sort of fair. So if you went first in one pass, you'll go in a different spot in a later pass. And not all teams may take all actions every window, right? If they're not ready, or if they don't have a thing that they want to attempt, or haven't solved a particular challenge and figured out what they need to do yet, maybe we have a couple go by where nothing is happening, or maybe only a few teams do. All right. So now, speaking of the teams, let's talk about the teams themselves that are here. It's really cool to me that these have been 5 teams that have all got a long history now with the last 4 years that we've been running Hackasat. The tremendous amount of placements and qualifiers and finalists. And so it's really cool that, again, the goal of this event as a whole was to increase interest, education. It's to help the Capture the Flag, the cybersecurity, the information security community engage with these new systems, right? There's a lot of unique constraints and unique things with the platform that they're running on. And we're going to go in order of their qualification. So again, the qualifiers that was held on April 1st weekend, this was the first place team, which was Krautsat. They're actually a mostly German team. They've got a couple of Europeans as well. They've actually been participating in all 4 years of Hackasat, and they've actually been in the finals now twice. They were first in quals this year, which is like a good sign, so they're kind of like on an upward trend. I think it's interesting to talk about them in particular because Krautsat and Sauercloud, which is actually playing over in DEF CON CTF right now, are kind of like paired teams. They're part of the same CTF ecosystem. And this is sort of one of a couple of different CTF mega teams where there are several Capture the Flag teams that form up, oftentimes along national boundaries or other friend groups or colleges, and they'll have like several different smaller teams that come together to form one team. And so you'll see this is our sort of German representatives of a CTF mega team. The second place team at the qualifiers was Mhakaroni, an Italian sort of mega team. So they've got a number of, the folks on their team come from a number of different backgrounds. They've got a lot of academics, a lot of students, professors, researchers, and as well as a lot of commercial engineers at a lot of like tech companies, security people. And then they pulled in for in particular for Hackasat, they pulled in some folks that knew the space stuff, right? They had to learn how to do satellite operations and learn some of those details. They claim that they do have one weakness, so don't tell the other teams, but if you deliver them pizza with pineapple on it, it's apparently their kryptonite. It's Mhakaroni, so pepperoni only apparently, I guess is how that goes. But we'll see how they do. And again, they're one of the other teams along with Krautsat that are kind of jointly playing on the CTF finals over in DEF CON CTF and Hackasat at the same time. So these are large teams. They have large groups of people to even be able to split up and work sort of both of these events at the same time because they take a lot of energy and a lot of focus. Space Bits R Us is, unlike the sort of CTF mega teams we saw from the last two, is actually one organization. So this is Northrop Grumman. They're primarily from the US and the UK. It's a defense contractor. What's interesting, though, is that they still have this sort of mixture of backgrounds and experiences just in a very large company, right? So they could go find somebody who has satellite ops experience. They could find people with security, with reverse engineering, with data science, whatever skill sets that they needed, physicists, and they could pull all those people into one team, and they've formed that. They've actually been playing again for all 4 years. What I think is cool though is that they did much worse the first couple of years. They were very low in the rankings, and they've really improved and increased and done super well. In fact, they were second place in the finals last year. So they've really come along. You can tell that they've built up the team. They've been learning in this space and done super well. The next team is the one to watch for, though. They were only 4th in the qualifiers this year, but Poland Can Into Space, which is a play on words from the Country Balls comic. If you go look on a web comic, Country Balls, there's a joke about Poland can't like Poland can't get into space. And they're like, yes, we can. And their code is indeed going to be running in space this year. So I would say that they certainly can. They're primarily made up of two primarily Polish CTF teams, Dragon Sector and P4. They're very, very strong traditional kind of capture the flag teams, and they've been dominant in Hackasat over the years. This 4th place qualifying that they had this year is actually their lowest result they've had. They've been 1st or 2nd in every quals and every finals we've had in the past 3 years. Last year was the first time they got the 1st place in the finals, but again, they've just consistently done extremely well. And so it's not a surprise that we're seeing them here at our finals. If I had to put some Vegas odds on it, they would be a hard one to beat. So definitely keep an eye on them as we see how they score throughout the weekend. Finally, our last qualifying team is Jump FSRCX. I actually decoded the opcode at first when I first saw the team name. I'm like, okay, it's OX. Was it FF642 or no OF64FF21? And I was like trying to decode like the bits, like what does it mean? And then I was like, oh no, it's PFS and RCX. Like the logo makes it obvious. So they found an actual x64 CPU instruction that has their 2 team names combined into it. So PFS was a capture the flag team that actually won the first year of Hackasat. And then RCX is from Raytheon Technologies, and the defense contractor. RCX is their CTF team. And so like I was pretty impressed that they could actually find an x86 instruction with both of their mnemonics together, which is kind of cool. They claim that they can trigger random cosmic ray space rays and trigger bit flips. I think that's probably not true, but they did list that as their superpower on their team bio. If they can, Moonlighter will actually be much more susceptible to it than us on Earth with the ozone. If you're not familiar, like there are actual cosmic rays that will literally hit electronics and flip bits randomly. So sometimes when your computer blue screens, it's not because of a software bug, it's actually because a space ray hit your memory and flipped a bit. Like this is actually a thing that happens, which is kind of crazy to think about. I don't think they can do it, but we'll see if it helps them in the final event. All right, so that's it for the teams. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about kind of the schedule and what you can expect the rest of the weekend.
Thanks, Jordan. Okay, so let's just fill everybody in. If you haven't visited us right on the other side of this wall, meander back out of the village, please come see us. We do have stickers. If there's none out, ask one of us. We will hook you up with some cool stickers. We are, of course, running the CTF the rest of today and all day tomorrow. Let's just remember this is quite literally the first CTF in space. So please digest our information, really get lost in the posters, ask questions. The only thing we do ask is that you give the privacy to the competitors and the main game ops table. They're kind of off limits, but we will help you and get you all the information you need in the meantime. Being our 4th year in the village, we still wanted to provide an educational aspect, provide folks with kind of a trip down memory lane. So we have a really fun and cool technology museum. I personally think it looks awesome. In the cases, you'll find flat sats from years 1 and 2. You'll also see a 3D print of Moonlighter. That's in the 3rd case. The screen above those has a lot of information as far as the different boards and parts and pieces that it took to put those flat sats and make those work for us. We've got posters on Moonlighter, on the game. We have a history poster, which is very informative as well. On our main screen, we're actually going to get some audio running out there. Live scoreboard, we're always tracking Moonlighter. It's very important to us, and we want to be able to share that with you all as well. Other than that, we hope to see you again tomorrow, right back here in the same stage, the same room at 11. Jordan is going to give a full deep dive of everything that occurs today, anything else that he can talk about that's been scored and all the teams know. There will be no secrets or insider information given in this room. We're not anticipating any teams to come in and listen to these talks, so this is really for you guys to just get that piece of the competition that you don't otherwise get sitting at those chairs out there. So like I said, tomorrow at 11, and then Sunday, the award ceremony is at noon, and that will be the first time that anybody knows where the scoreboard is at and hears our first, second, and third place winners. The scoreboard is getting pulled off from our public website tomorrow at 6 p.m., not necessarily to provide a blackout, but because we have many more contacts that we're going to be downlinking information and getting the final scores computed. Are you running through? Yeah. Okay, Jordan, one more time for you all.
All right, so we're going to do a quick game update because, again, the competition actually started at 9 a.m. this morning. The teams have been actively communicating with things, and we do have a couple of scoring events. So we're going to pull up the scoreboard, but as a reminder, you can get to all this on hackasat.com. I almost said different one. I'm doing 2 different events this weekend, so it's a little crazy. If you go to hackasat.com, you can see all of the data of like when the next contact window is. You can see how teams are scoring, and we do already have 2 teams who have scored. So remember earlier I mentioned there are 2 challenges that are just here on the ground station. So there's some services that the teams can interact with, and this is important because somebody's like, well, I thought this was a space hacking challenge. Like, why are they hacking just regular stuff like that are like normal servers sitting on the ground? It's like, well, because in actual satellite operations, the ground station is very much a part of the ecosystem. So that is very much part of securing it is to secure the communication systems that are working with, and those are oftentimes just running on standard servers, standard desktops, and the operating systems they're running. Maybe sometimes there's some slight differences, but some of those are actually surprisingly familiar to people who play regular CTFs. So it's not a surprise that teams are doing better with that. We've already got 2 scores on those ground station challenges, and so both Poland CAN and Jump FSRCX have scored on the Flight Software Freebies challenge. So there, you'll see the scoreboard out on the wall and on the website. You'll see that they were able to get that in. We expect a couple more, and then again, hopefully we'll see some come through as they have their more communication windows kind of throughout the day. So, like I said, I think we'll just let you all check it out on the website, unless it's here. Oh, it's here. There we go. All right, so we can see the website. That's all right. It'll even work on mobile. It can be a little bit slow because there's a lot of stuff that loads on it. There's a whole bunch of different things. You'll see the score over time. The best one I think is probably the challenge dashboard. And the challenge dashboard will show you by challenge who has solved things, so you get a pretty good idea of kind of where people are throughout the competition. If that makes sense. All right, I think that's it. We look forward to seeing everybody at our update tomorrow as well as Sunday. We'll tell you more details about how teams are doing. There was a